Hello again, and welcome back to my Hansel and Gretel children's book project. Today I'm going to show you guys how I go about thumbnailing a children's book, and I also wanted to talk about layout just because I think it's an important thing to discuss, and because you're going to see me explain all of this, and then I'm also going to start thumbnailing and you're going to see me do it incorrectly because I forget about the publication pages. So I just wanted to clarify that up front. There's supposed to be 2 publication pages. It all makes sense as the video goes along. I just wanted to be clear about that and make this as professional of a project as possible by including those pages and not just pretending like they never existed, because they're important. So I'm going to show you right now a little bit in detail about this. So this is going to be a 32-page children's book. You would have a cover, and here these pages are called end pages. And if you don't know what they are, I'll show you in an actual book. And then of course you have the publication pages, or publication page and title page, whatever you want to say. And then the story would start about there. And then similarly at the end you have some end pages, and then of course the back cover. So what are end pages? What do they look like? Where are they in the book? And this is what they look like. They're just generally like a pattern or some additional illustrations that kind of help tie the book together. You see one page is actually glued to the cover, but it's just part of the layout of the book. And then of course you have your publication page and your title page. I kind of lump them together as publication pages. They'll probably have a dedication or an additional illustration on them. And then of course your story would begin on either the next page or the page after. And then of course at the end you have more end pages just to kind of tie your book all together into one nice cohesive layout. Okay, so here, as you can see, I'm actually starting where the publication pages were supposed to be, but we already talked about that. That will get fixed at the end, you'll see. So I am not going to spend a lot of time explaining everything that I'm sketching. I'm just going to say that these are thumbnails. They're not supposed to be pretty drawings. They're going to be pretty crappy, actually. And you're not going to see every single idea that I went through as I did this, because I edited so much out of this video so it wouldn't be incredibly long. I mean, it still ended up being kind of long. It's like 16 minutes, which is pretty long for my channel. I haven't done anything longer than I think maybe 8 minutes. I don't know, I'd have to go look again. But anyway, I also wanted to mention that there's technically a step before this where you're dealing with the manuscript and you're breaking up all the text from that manuscript across the 30 pages, so you know what to illustrate for, the different pages. And it's pretty straightforward, so I felt like I didn't really need to include that step in this process. It has nothing to do with well, actually it does have a lot to do with the illustrations. I just don't think it would have made a very interesting video. But anyway, so as you can see, I'm going through and sketching things out. I jump around sometimes when I get stuck, if I can't really think of a good illustration. And that's just what you're doing constantly with this, is just figuring out the best way to tell this story. And you're trying to fit it all in 30 pages, which is not really a lot of pages if you think about it. And there's technically some kind of rule about having like only 1 to 2 sentences per page, maybe no more than 3. I don't know how hard and fast a rule that is. I've heard it before. And it has a lot to do with like the kids' attention span and what age group you're illustrating the book for. But yeah, that's just another thing that makes this more of a problem-solving step in the process of illustrating the book. And another thing is, obviously, I'm taking this as a whole. I know the entire manuscript. I have, all the text. It's solidified, and I can jump around, and I know what to illustrate. And I only bring this up maybe as like a PSA for my fellow freelance illustrators, is that you really want your clients to have a solidified manuscript, or at least have them communicate any changes to the manuscript like during this stage. And I've even had clients just wait until I do final artwork and then they decide that they want to change something in the manuscript. Just so you all know, that is something that should be charged additionally. That is not the illustrator's fault. And another thing though that happened recently was a client changed the manuscript after our contract was done, which when I saw it, I thought it was so bizarre because the text did not match the illustration anymore, and it was just a bunch of words next to a pretty picture. And that kind of reflects poorly on me as the illustrator, because it looks like I didn't pay attention to what the text was saying and I just decided to draw whatever I wanted, something pretty. And that is not our job as an illustrator. Our job is to enhance the story and even add to it. For example, this thumbnail I'm working on here has a wanted poster, and on the wanted poster is actually the stepmother's face. And she's actually the witch in this story. She's the same person. But the only people who know that are the readers. Hansel and Gretel don't know yet until later on in the story with the reveal from the posters. And none of that is actually explained in the text. Similarly to that is this spot illustration that I'm working on here. And I know you guys can't actually tell what I'm doodling here, but basically one of the images has Gretel kissing a frog. And why is she kissing the frog? I don't know. Maybe she wants a Prince Charming to come and save her from the situation that her and her family is in. And the text obviously doesn't say anything about it. It's just something kind of hidden in the illustrations. Not really hidden, but it's added to the illustrations to make the story that much more enjoyable and interesting for the reader. And my point is that those are enhancements to the story that is being told in the manuscript. However, if you reverse that and have the manuscript change and not match the illustrations, it doesn't actually work. So for my client to have, just changed the manuscript and didn't really care if the illustration matched what was being said in the text, just proves that they just saw my job as someone who makes pretty pictures, and that's it. But that's not my job, and although I do make pretty pictures, there's so much more to it than just that. Okay, so moving along here, I also wanted to talk about something else that's very important to the flow of the book and the way your story kind of gets illustrated, and that is using spreads, which is an illustration that takes up 2 pages. It's one illustration across 2 pages, versus just a single illustration on each of the pages. It's good to have a variety of these types of spread versus single page illustrations, and also a few spot illustrations, but keeping sort of a good even balance between that, so your story isn't just single page, single page, single page after another, because that can be very choppy to read through. And I actually had a client come to me with his manuscript laid out in that way, where every single page was a different illustration because the text was laid out that way. That's how he wrote the book. And I eventually did push back on it and, kind of showed him that he could lay out his sentences differently, where we could lump things together and have a spread, and it would just make the book flow a lot better. And he took the advice. He really didn't know that you could do that with the layout of the book, which is fascinating to me, how many people are willing to embark on making a children's book and have not actually studied a children's book. They haven't opened one and looked at the layout, because it's pretty easy to see, if you just opened one of those books and paid attention to what was going on, because there's a lot more going on than just text and pictures on a page. So one last thing I wanted to talk about is the page turn effect. I don't know if there's a technical term for it. Basically, you would have 2 pages or a spread where you're building up to some sort of action that happens on the next page when you turn the page over. So pages 25 and 26 that I just thumbnailed are building up the action that is going to happen on page 27 when the page turns. And you want to have your actions happen on a page turn so it doesn't give away the action too early. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're planning out your pages and how everything flows together in the layout. So before I wrap things up, I did want to mention how I fixed the publication page issue, and all I really had to do was delete 2 of the thumbnails and rearrange the layout a bit, but it managed to all work itself out eventually, so everything was good. Alright, that is really all I had to say about thumbnailing. Thank you so much for watching this video if you stuck around. I did manage to get it down to like 10 minutes or something like that, but instead of 16 minutes like I mentioned earlier. Thank you so much for anyone who stuck around through this, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative in some way about the process of making a book. We illustrators do a lot more than just draw pictures and make things look pretty. There's a lot of planning and problem solving that goes on when you make a children's book. So I hope you guys found it interesting. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, bye.